Clicker here. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Robert Negron. I'm founding artistic director of the Indy Convergence. I'm really happy to be here today, and I'm just really grateful to be asked to present. So Indy Convergence is probably one of the oldest Indianapolis-based arts companies that you've never heard of. So I'll start with that. I'll explain a little bit about what we do. It was founded in 2007 by an actor, a dancer, and a poet who wanted to create an open lab environment for artists to experiment across disciplines while working together on a peer-to-peer basis through relationships of mutual mentorship. Annual international, interdisciplinary 2-week residency programs are carefully curated where artists come together to learn, to share, to teach, and most importantly, to fail without consequence. Artists' careers live, thrive, and die off the strength and execution of our ideas. Indy Convergence offers a process-focused environment, allowing professional artists to widen their lens and sharpen their toolkit. Since our first convergence in 2008, we've expanded our annual 2-week residency programs into Toronto, Canada, and Jacmel, Haiti, bringing our resident alum to over 200 and still growing. And let's face it, it's a really fantastic time to be an artist. Our value is being acknowledged in sectors that used to just pat us on the heads as like lovable dilettantes. But we're being heard by city planners, medical professionals, scientists, and economists. They've all come to realize something that we've known all along. We're good at shit. We're a value add to any table we sit at because of our abilities to reconcile two completely conflicting ideas, to see Thanksgiving from the turkey's point of view, to unreservedly connect to a stranger, fully engaging emotionally and spiritually, and still be honored to honor their dignity by maintaining professional separation. We have an uncanny ability to live in the uncomfortable question without turning our gaze. We learn through empathy. We communicate through symbols. We work fast, we work hard, and we do it all on the cheap. Now, paying artists better for their work is another topic, but it is, in fact, the inherent nature of our hustle existence that leads us to say yes every time you call. We train to say yes. We live to say yes. We trust in the power of yes. We trust in the internalized, ever-repeating cosmic yes. If you can convince us of something, and to be honest, it's really not that hard, we can sell it to the whole world. Do I come across to you as confident? You bet I do. I've trained my whole life since my first play in 2nd grade to speak up, to be heard, to make you believe me. Our currency is catharsis. And when we hold up an idea, sometimes through words, sometimes through music, sometimes through images, almost always, love it or hate it, we are making the world a better place. I truly believe that, or I wouldn't do what I do. But my question today is, what happens when artists bring their charisma to bear in places that we don't really understand? I fear too many artists are holding up ideas as solutions to challenges that, in the cold light of day, will reveal themselves to be wicked problems. Wicked problems that we have unwittingly exacerbated and perpetuated because we do not fully understand the forces affecting the spaces that we're engaging with. Dear artist, it's not your fault, yet. But it's time we begin exchanging our eager yes for I'm interested, and I have some more questions. It's time to take an honest look at our strengths, at our weaknesses, and at the ethical responsibility in operating in spaces that we do not fully understand. Dear artists, let us not squander our seats at the adult table. Let us not betray the trust that we have asked for and the opportunity we've been given to effectuate positive change. Dear developer, my passion for utilizing arts in civically based community engagement has taught me that a more intentional approach to engagement strategy and in the ground-up design of community-focused arts programming is needed, both from artists and especially from the organizations that employ them. So I'm here today to share a few examples of my work at Indy Convergence and to discuss our engagement strategy and the structure of our programs in what I hope you'll find to be worthy examples of replicable design, and artistic civic engagement. But let's start with one of those uncomfortable questions I've been living in. Is artistic excellence suffering under the weight of increased expectation for artists to include community engagement in their work? Now, I'm not being trite when I say that I actually live in this question, but we need to consider that most likely the short answer is yes. And the efficacy of community engagement is suffering too. This question is loaded. It touches on granting structures, city and stakeholder initiatives, the ability for arts organizations to stay solvent, and most importantly, the communities that we're serving. So I'll start with probably the only statement I'm going to say today that I'm absolutely sure of. Making art is good enough. Full stop, period. I guess period should have gone before that. Bring into your mind the image of a curmudgeonly woodworker sanding away in his basement. Is it objectively better that he hosts a talkback at the Arbor Association to make his grant application more competitive? By virtue of selling or displaying his work, the public is engaged. I can see here a conversation between man and nature, between the life force embodied in water, the human impact on the natural environment. Now, the worst case scenario would be for the same artist to augment his actual project, because now we get bad community work and bad art, because he wasn't truly inspired to do an installation in a park to begin with. But what's the big deal, right? I mean, I loved the sweet old guy in the rainbow suspenders that used to come and sing at my elementary school. But consider that you may be to community work what he was to arts excellence. The only difference is his shortcomings are doing no harm. I feel kind of bad for beating up on that random guy I found on the internet, but you get my point. We can take the trajectory of placemaking as an example in this very professional graph that I've put up here. You can see how we went from placemaking to placekeeping, which was an adjustment to clarify its intent after what could be described as irresponsible implementation by unskilled practitioners, all the way to today, where we call it, "Get your damn concert out of my alley, you privileged gentrifier." So how did we get here? Employing artists in places that they don't understand is how we got here. Like, there's so much to unpack in this question, and I'm actually not really interested in convincing you of anything. I'm just going to make a few standalone statements that are kind of swirling around in this question for me that had impact on the design of Indy Convergence's engagement strategy. So first, arts excellence is important. Efficacy in community work is important. Gentrification is a process, and so is the absence of gentrification. Bad community work is not preferable to no community work. Trends in granting interests change over time. And lastly, funding for arts excellence is not a fad. It's not going anywhere. And if you're not willing to put the same lifelong energy into the art that you make, maybe sit this one out. The pendulum is going to swing back to arts excellence, and the best thing you can do is be ready for it. So our strategy at Indy Convergence is a design that values community-engaged work and the personal work of the artists that we have in our building. We choose to value community-engaged work and the personal work of our artists equally, but also separately. We have an agreement with our community. Within our four walls, artists express themselves as they see fit. Entering our door is considered consent, and like it or hate it, expect to be challenged. Now, our staff lives in the community we serve. So separately, as community residents and as equal collaborators, we conceive and create things together. We dedicate ourselves to amplifying community voice, adding capacity to existing resident ideas, and to honoring current resident culture. Because when done intentionally and from the ground up, civically engaged arts programming is the most mutually rewarding and beautiful thing I have ever experienced as an artist or as an audience member. So let's start from the beginning, because ill begun is ill begot, right? So moving here from San Diego and Los Angeles, and growing up in a family that's Mexican, German, Puerto Rican, and English, the Near West is the first place I found in Indy that actually felt like home. Now, as a neighborhood resident is something you become, but moving into a home is just something that you do. Our early engagement strategy as Near West residents and arts organizations hoping to connect to the neighborhood was based on a simple idea. Don't just do something, sit there. We committed our organization to a year of listening before engaging in any overt programming in our community. We went to every neighborhood association. We volunteered for every community we could. We met privately with residents and stakeholders, and of course, we listened. Now, I don't think anybody actually believed that we were seriously just going to listen to it for a year until we actually did it. But the result is, in 2017, we knew where we fit in, and so did the community. And it wasn't perfect, of course, but we had spent a year dreaming out loud with our neighbors, and now they were actually asking us to get to work. Now, because we don't rely on community development grants as part of our revenue model, we're uniquely able to take the time we need to work in collaboration with residents, conceiving projects together and bringing them from 0 to 100 in partnership, as opposed to acquiring funding and then searching for resident engagement after we've been approved. But we lacked an existing committee or system that to sustain the resident conversation required to keep that happening on a continual basis. Now, we knew that starting our own Indy Convergence resident group would be problematic because it has the potential to create a destabilizing alliance. And what I mean by that is I could knock on doors in any neighborhood and find 10 to 12 people to agree with me with just about anything. But the guiding intention needs to be to strengthen and add capacity to existing neighborhood leadership, to honor their hard work and double down on the things that are already happening. So we worked with residents to revamp the Near West Livability Committee to a task force. We designed it to be a pathway to bring resident projects to fruition. There, I could be just another resident business owner bringing my own ideas to the table. We borrowed from our artist residency structure where everyone comes with an idea and everyone works together to help it happen. Everyone follows and everyone leads. We don't just ask, is this a good idea? We ask, is this the best version of this idea? And that's hard to know at first glance. And many residents have great ideas, but absolutely no idea where to start. So we designed a 3-stage launch pad, starting with 10 simple questions and ending in a grant-ready project. More seasoned residents are invited to offer mentorship throughout this process. Now, as an artist, I get excited, and it's easy to start moving ahead without due diligence. These worksheets help keep me accountable to my own process and to working at the speed of community. Now, I won't be able to talk too much about RAW just for time's sake, but I'll be going into RAW in greater detail at the Near West panel discussion happening at Indy Convergence tomorrow. It's a Haitian tradition conceived by artists visiting through our residency program from Jacmel. So as my finale, I'll skip ahead and share Indy Convergence's newest initiative as an example. It's one of the most exciting projects I've ever worked on. And if you have heard of Indy Convergence before coming here today, this is probably why. We're the ones putting a floating stage on the Indianapolis White River. And I know that we're onto something because it's the first thing that we've ever done important enough to bring internet haters towards us. So A Rising Tide is an Indy Convergence initiative made possible through the Nina Mason Polium Charitable Trust White River Fund, which definitely needs an acronym, and created in partnership with the Roe White River Waterway Committee and the Near West Livability Task Force. So for artists at the Indy Convergence, A Rising Tide is an opportunity to produce intimate and innovative experiences. It's mobile, non-invasive arts programming that will transform the shoreline of the White River into a mobile theater district. For Roe, it's an early action project that will provide visible, marketable, replicable shoreline activity that will not negatively affect the environment or preclude implementation of future development plans. For Near West residents and the Livability Task Force, A Rising Tide is a social catalyst, an economic arts engine. So that's all great you're saying, but I'm sure you're wondering about the stage. So I'll skip ahead to that for just a second. It's called Easy Dock. It's basically an insanely durable constructor set. It's super versatile too. It's extremely safe, and as you can see, very solid. We had to promise our insurance company that we would not put any cars on it though. But speaking of insurance companies, We found them to be surprisingly sensitive about the combination of artists, electricity, and maritime equipment. So, while I hope one day to be the captain of a beautiful stage like this, I hope that you're not too disappointed when I tell you for now it's going to look a little more something like this. But who cares? We're actually putting a floating stage on the White River. We're starting with 5 intimate performances this year, no more than 50 participants per performance. Tickets and season passes on sale at Indy Convergence. But in 2020, we go open source by celebrating our city's bicentennial with 20 performances in 2020. But where's anyone going to get rental equipment for perfectly created for outdoor use? Well, I'm glad you asked, because it just so happens through this grant we have some. And all rental income will go directly to Livability Task Force. Sorry, did I say all? No. 25% of all rental income will go directly to Livability Task Force to fund resident-led projects. Big grants are great, but it's the small pots of money that keep wheels greased on resident projects. So what's missing? How about workforce development? Outdoor summer jobs for high school students? We're dedicated to building a Near West tech crew that can continue with the Fonseca Theater Company, our partner in building a resident-focused arts campus on the west side. So this idea is innovative and challenging, and we've worked very hard for it, and we're very proud. But if anyone knows Indy Convergence's story, you know that it's been our luck to enjoy the privilege of good timing. And it must be said that we arrived to this moment on the coattails of years and years of Near West resident work. So dear artist, can I rap? Is that cool? I don't know where the bell came from. Yeah? Okay. So, dear artist, dear community developer, dear neighbor, great changes are coming to our river, and a rising tide is designed to keep Near West resident voice at the center of it, putting the objects of most value squarely in the hands of our river's most marginalized participants, inviting Near West residents for half-priced hot dog nights to the revitalization happening on the river is not equity. And a rising tide is an economic arts engine designed to make sure that the Near West is the beneficiary of this revitalization. So please join us at Indy Convergence tomorrow at 6 p.m. where I'll go into a bit more detail on this. And you'll also be able to speak to a panel of livability residents, or residents involved in livability. And then feel free to stay behind for the first annual God Awful TED Talks. It's a fundraiser for our upcoming residency. Thank you.